Over the past decade, I've read a lot of different books. Some have left an immediate impact on my life. Others I've literally thrown in the trash. Just kidding, I wouldn't do that. Over the course of my life, there's always been a lot of pressure to read, and until I got into my adulthood, it wasn't something that I did on a frequent basis. I found that when I was in school and the teachers were telling me to read a certain book or get introduced to a certain genre or topic, I was a little bit of a rebel, and I didn't like the fact that they were telling me what I should be reading or what I should be interpreting. And it wasn't until later in life that I realized it wasn't the fact that I didn't like to read. I wasn't reading books that I felt were helpful to my life. When thinking about the specific books that I wanted to introduce you to today, I broke it down into themes of books that I've looked for throughout my life. That is relationships, career, and something I like to call the school of life. So with relationships, you have relationship with yourself, and then you have relationships with everybody around you. These are the foundational pieces of anything that you're gonna do in life, so it's key to invest in information that'll help you thrive in your relationships. The next one is career. No matter who you are, you're gonna be investing a lot of time, energy, and money into building up your skills and your assets to help you have a thriving career. The last one, the school of life, is really just continuous education. I think that everyone that succeeds at anything in their life is continuously educating themselves in the areas that they feel weak in, and also they're passionate about sharpening their minds and integrating new tools, technologies, resources into what they're already working on and already great at. So let's start with relationships with yourself. The first book that I'm gonna show you is my all-time favorite, and it's something that I bring everywhere. It's the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. The reason that this book is my number one is because it's outlined in a way that helps you build frameworks with health, wealth, and happiness. The book itself is actually broken down into wealth and happiness, and these are two areas that I feel like every human being needs to understand if they want to live a fruitful life. Let's start with wealth. Building wealth is not a thing you do, it's a skill you learn. This book starts off with challenging you on what you believe wealth actually is. The beauty of it is it doesn't mean just monetary wealth. Wealth can feel and look a million different ways. Each person might define their own wealth differently. Some have a wealth of knowledge, some have a wealth of money, some have a wealth of energy, some have a wealth of community. The important part is for you to define that wealth for yourself and create your own framework of what it looks like. The other reason I really like this book is because it was written by Eric Jorgensen, who took tweets and other information that Naval put out into the world and compiled it together. The reason that I appreciate this is because Naval, at the end of the day, doesn't necessarily have anything to gain from this book. It's actually written at the end of the book that this was created out of public service, so this really hits home with me. You can tell throughout the book that the information is truly there just to be valuable for you, not to shed light on why you should necessarily do it Naval's way or Eric's way. It's really just to get you thinking about what does your life look like and how can you implement some of these frameworks into your life to improve it. The last thing about this book is you can literally open up to any page and immediately get hit with some value. If you ever want to have peace in your life, you have to move beyond good and evil. Happiness is what's there when you remove the sense that something is missing in your life. Everything is more beautiful because we're doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now, and we will never be here again. That quote really hits home with me because I have heartbeat tattoos on me. Make every heartbeat count is a slogan that I created for Thrive on Life, and it's to remind myself that we're only here one time. So I think it's easy for you to see why this book has left an imprint on me and how it has helped me become a wealthier, healthier, happier individual. The next book is Difficult Conversations: How to Discuss What Matters Most. Over the years, after I've reflected on how do I improve the relationship with myself, I also asked myself the question, how do I improve my relationship with those around me? And what I started realizing was over the years, I had a difficult time telling other people no. I had a difficult time telling other people what I truly thought. The worst part of it was I had a difficult time communicating what my feelings were. This is something that I think a lot of other men struggle with. Communicating and articulating our feelings is not something that's necessarily taught to us at a young age or instilled in us in the locker room or in school. So it's something that I think hits home with a lot of other men out there, and it's a struggle that I definitely have endured. What did this look like in my everyday life? Well, I'm about to be 5 years married, and my wife would attest my communication style, my tone, and the way that I've shown up in some moments has not been my best self. So with some personal reflection and some guidance from her, I took a step back and realized one of the areas I really needed to sharpen myself was how do I have difficult conversations without really hurting anybody else's feelings, without seeming too aggressive, without taking the approach that I knew it all and I lacked empathy. That's where this book has really been helpful to me. It's helped me understand that a lot of what we want out of life is at the other end of a difficult conversation. Whether you're looking to get that raise from your current job, or you're looking to ask out that cute girl or guy, or you're having some family turmoil, the ability to have those conversations in a calm, cool, and collected manner are gonna help you get to the end result in a much more efficient and effective manner. Now let's dive into a direct example that I think can relate to a lot of people out there. The what happened conversation. The what happened conversation is where we spend much of our time in difficult conversations. As we struggle with our different stories about who's right, who meant what, and who's to blame, on each of these three fronts, truth, intentions, and blame, we make a common but crippling assumption. Straightening out each of these assumptions is essential to improving our ability to handle difficult conversations well. I don't know about you, but there's a lot of assumptions I've made in my life. There's a lot of instances that I can reflect on and realize that I cared more about being right than even listening to what that other person had to say in the first place. That is definitely one of my biggest flaws that I've held over the years, and I'm proud of myself for picking up books like this that have helped me work towards turning that flaw into a strength. The next important theme that I had mentioned prior is career. So while I have focused heavily on my relationship with myself and my relationship with others and the books that could help provide me information, career is one that I heavily invest in every single day. When I think about my career as an entrepreneur and my goals to eventually be an angel investor, I know that if I have that lofty goal, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of energy and time investing in books, podcasts, and listening to other people that have already done what I'm trying to do. Because of that, the number one thing that I sought out in the early stages of my entrepreneurial career is to understand the lingo and the language that people that have already done it are talking about. There are a ton of business books, podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos out there into how you can build your brand and your business. But if you can't understand the language that they're talking to you in, you're not really gonna be able to receive that information and then implement it into your daily life. So then the number one thing I looked to do was to get my personal MBA. School is not my thing, reading is, and teaching myself is. So I looked for a book that would teach me the lingo and the language of the business world. Think of it as if you were in school. When you went to Spanish class, you didn't start at Spanish 5, you started at Spanish 1, and then you worked your way up. This is what that book is. Right from the start, when you're looking at the contents, you're gonna see that it's broken down into different sections. So we have value creation, marketing, sales, value delivery, finance, the human mind, working with yourself, working with others, understanding systems, analyzing systems, improving systems. It's a whole slew of what goes into owning and operating a business. Above and beyond that, if I were to read into what some of those topics were in those different sections, the mercenary rule, the iteration cycle, visualization, framing, value-based selling, profit, we have costs, fixed and variable, we have compounding, hierarchy of funding, bootstrapping, cost-benefit analysis, correlation and causation. Wow, that's all very overwhelming. So if you're a new entrepreneur, or even if you're an experienced one, there's so many different acronyms, definitions, equations, topics that if you were to learn what they truly mean, you can then implement them into your everyday life and help your business continue to grow and scale. Since I'm a big systems guy, I'm attracted to what they're saying about how do you analyze a system and how do you improve a system. And within this book specifically, they talked about humanization of a system. And in the technology and automation age that we're living in, I think a lot of people forget that humans are at the other end of the work that we're doing in everyday life. I started this video with relationships because it's something that really matters to me, and I'm hoping to encourage other people to make relationships a bigger part of their life, especially in their career. So one of the biggest takeaways from this book that I had is how they added a humanization section to their systems. And I'm gonna read off what I mean by that. Analyzing data is comforting to the quantitative mind, but to really use data properly, you must go above and beyond juggling numbers to understand what they're telling you. When analyzing data from a system, it's easy to forget that it often pertains to the actions of real human beings. For example, imagine a customer service department that answers customer complaints by telephone. Numerically, reducing hold times from 10 minutes to 8 minutes sounds great. That's a 20% improvement. What the data-centric viewpoint misses is the fact that you still have a dissatisfied customer waiting on the phone for 8 minutes, which still feels like an eternity. Every minute on hold makes that customer angrier, which affects their perception of the company. Humanization is a process of using data to tell a story, a narrative, about a real person's experience or behavior. So with this, it talks about utilizing your systems to understand the end customer and the narrative that they're talking about when they're speaking about your company or your brand. If you're always thinking with that in mind, you're gonna continuously build better systems that help your customer experience. Therefore, your customers are gonna talk about you all the time and bring in new customers for you. When we're thinking about our relationships with ourselves and with other people, there's something that we cannot escape in life, and that is conflict. We're not always going to agree with other people around us. We're gonna have different beliefs. We've all grown up in different households. We've lived in different cities. And when it comes to our relationships and our career, we're gonna be working with different people. How you go about solving those conflicts and how you show up as an individual to reduce the amount of conflicts that you actually get in is a major positive attribute that you can have to be successful in your life. So when I was thinking about my relationship with myself and with other people and how I was handling the resolution of conflict, I wasn't really pleased with my results in my early life. That's where the Anatomy of Peace comes in. This book's whole goal is to teach you empathy that will help you resolve conflicts in a mature way, but also help you reduce the amount of conflicts that you find yourself in. It states that what if conflicts at home, conflicts at work, and conflicts in the world stem from the same root cause? What if we systematically misunderstand that cause? And what if, as a result, we systematically perpetuate the very problems we think we are trying to solve every day? The reason that I really enjoyed this book is because it wasn't just a self-help book that threw facts at you about your psychology and biology. It told a story about how parents were dropping their kids off at a rehabilitation center. And throughout that story, you start realizing that the parents thought that something was wrong with the kids and that the kids were there to be rehabilitated over a certain period of time. But what the book does is it enlightens us that the reason that the kids were there in the first place was the relationship that the parent had with the kids. It brought out the flaws in the parents and made them empathize with their own child, therefore that they could build a better bond with their child. This book is a powerful story, but it also has practicality to it. It helps you with diagrams to understand how to actually introduce empathy into your life. It talks about our senses and our desires. And one of the issues that we can all connect to in life is seeing other people like we see ourselves. You can learn the backstory of this diagram in the book, but essentially what ends up happening is Mordecai drops something and then somebody else has the choice to either help him pick it up or to just keep going on with their life. The choice is either honor the sense I continue to see Mordecai as a person like myself, having seen myself drop something and I wish somebody would help me, or betray the sense and I begin to see Mordecai in ways that justify my self-betrayal. He becomes an object to me. I don't know who he is. He doesn't relate to me. He's not a human like me, and therefore I can go on with my life. This is something that I think all human beings can relate to. Somebody has a belief that we don't agree with, they show up in a way that we don't agree with, and if something were to happen to them where they needed our help, we put our own self-interest above being a good person, having the empathy that, hey, this is a human being at the end of the day, we should be better than to just leave them stranded on their own. This type of book hits home on relationships, career, and continuous education. And it's one of the ones that has had a major impact on me because when we're talking about leadership and leading other people in teams, empathy and understanding their personal stories, even though we might not agree with everything that is in that story, can help us build trust and help build a world that is more cohesive rather than divisive. The last book I want to talk about is in the continuous education theme that I described. One of the things that I struggled with when I grew up was when I went to school and was learning from teachers, I didn't necessarily trust what they were teaching me as something that was going to be useful for my life. I'm a big believer in I love to learn from doers, not sayers. And that's where Tim Ferriss compiled a whole list of people that are at the top of their individual games, and all of them are willing to share parts and pieces of their story, skills that they've learned, information that they've learned, and wisdom that they can share with the world that if the world chooses, they can utilize those resources, skills, and wisdom to improve their own lives. So the whole premise of this video has been to showcase the books that I've utilized within my own life in hopes that you go on and you start to define your own themes that you want to live by and utilize books, podcasts, other learning methods to help you improve your own life. Now, with Tribe of Mentors, one of the reasons that I picked this book up in the first place was the fact that it had so many different types of people in here that I could learn from. It isn't people from the same industry, the same walk of life, the same story, the same age. They're all different. It's segmented so that every single story is going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit different in length, and they're going to have different information to provide you. Some of the people on this list: Jesse Williams, Anna Holmes, Ben Stiller, Jocko Willink, Larry King, Esther Dyson, Tim O'Reilly, Arianna Huffington, Tony Hawk. There's over 500 pages of information in here, and what it looks like to be, should know this, how many people are in this book, but I don't know this. There's a lot of different people in here that you can learn from, and going back to relationships and having empathy, you might not agree with how they go about living their own life. That is called being human, but there is something to be said about understanding that other side and using that information in every day of your own life. A book that I have read, which isn't in my list here today, is Principles by Ray Dalio. Ray says something that really hits home with me, and it's something that I've tried to live by my entire life. Think for yourself while being radically open-minded. So having an opinion, but being open-minded to changing that opinion, especially in today's world and how most people are going about it. We are told what to do, what to think, why to think that way, what we should wear, what careers we should have, who we should date, or it could be the opposite, what not to do, what not to wear. It's critical for you to start thinking for yourself. Books can help you do that, but also maintain your ability to change your minds when new information is provided to you. And that is one snippet of something that you can take from this book. As you can see, it's pretty hefty, but the reality is I flew through this book and I read probably 4 to 5 stories every single morning until I was finished with it. While I just discussed 5 books that have had a massive impact on my life, there's one bonus book that I'd like to talk about that I think anybody in the world can gain value from. I don't have this book on me because I gave it away, but it is one that I also listen to on Audible every single year, and that book is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Essentially, Essentialism is primed to teach somebody to understand what is essential in their life. For me personally, I've struggled over the years with being a people pleaser and being super energetic and wanting to go out and do everything all at once and not really understanding how to dial it back and understand what is most meaningful to me and how I should show up every single day to make the most of my life. One of the lessons that book teaches is a sunk cost fallacy, where we invest a lot of our time into something and we're afraid to let that thing go, which then inhibits us from living a more abundant life. I know what this feels like directly because since I was 3 years old, I played the sport of soccer all the way up through college, and then I continued to play when I was a young professional all the way up until I was 27 years old. And over those years, I realized that I'd never wanted to leave the sport of soccer is because I was attaching my identity to it. It was how I made friends, how I exercised, and played a big role in my daily life. But what that cost me was the ability to spend time learning new things and challenging myself in other ways. Once I read Essentialism and listened to it and peeled back some layers of who I am as an individual and what I like to get out of life, I always love to constantly be learning, constantly be doing new things. And I realized that investing so much energy into soccer was holding me back from being my best self. The sunk cost fallacy is something I think everybody can relate to, and you might end up having a similar story to mine. We're gonna close this chapter. I wanna thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something from those 5 books that have had a positive impact on my life. You don't necessarily have to read these books. I just hope this video encourages you to figure out what things that you can read or listen to that will help you in the areas of relationships, career, and continuing your own education. If you have books that are not listed here that you think that I could utilize to help improve my life, please drop them in the comments below. I'd love to add them to my list and continue to get better with you.